Welcome, folks. I'm Jaby Koay, joined by ACHARA KIRK.
What's up?
We're looking at a new Rockstars video, Avengers Endgame. New clue, did Iron Man know about Kang?
I thought you were going to say, we're going to be looking at a new video, and I was going to say, this video is not new.
No, it's not new at all. It's from October 23rd, 2020. It's a little bit older, but I thought that it could be an interesting and educational video for all of us.
Yeah, especially since we've been rewatching the Avengers movies.
Right, and so bear in mind that this predates the release of a few Marvel shows, so there might be some updated information in more recent new Rockstars videos, but I thought that this could be interesting nonetheless because he might have dropped some little gems in here that he didn't revisit in later videos. By the way, thank you, new Rockstars, for allowing us to react to this. Very, very much appreciate it. Y'all please vote this up if you could be so kind.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and Avengers Endgame and the rules of time travel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe just got overturned by, of all things, a book. What are those? Actually, I'm really glad we got Shuri here because it's the new book from Marvel and Epic Inc. called
Did you know about
The
this?
Wakanda
No.
Files, presented as a compilation of Shuri's research on all the tech in the MCU,
wow.
from weapons to AI to the quantum realm, with hidden messages revealed by a UV light from a Kimoyo beam.
What?
I still don't know what these
That's so
books are,
cool.
but I assume they're all like this and they sound great. Just be careful pointing that bead anywhere in your room. Gross. One of these passages sheds some UV light on one lingering mystery from Avengers Endgame that has come back up recently: how much Iron Man Tony Stark knew exactly going into the time heist and his final battle with Thanos. He obviously knew more than he let on, right? He pre-recorded a goodbye message suggesting he remembered that one future in which they won would require his self-sacrifice, which is why he knew from Strange's quivering finger alone what to do. And we've explored how he secretly designed his new Stark gauntlet specifically to be compatible with his own nanotech so that he'd be able to discreetly absorb the stones off Thanos' hand onto his. And yeah, I've also gone deeper into that to suggest the gauntlet never would have worked had Thanos actually snapped it with all the stones in there, that it was secretly a one-time fuse that Hulk already ignited when he snapped, and that the whole thing was a trick to lure Thanos into a false sense of confidence. Anyway, the new deal.
There's a couple of things to unpack there real quick. I mean, I'd have to watch those other videos to see what he was saying, but first off, was it clear to you that Tony Stark knew he was gonna die? Like before that moment? I didn't see any evidence of that myself.
I think what he's saying is that the fact that he recorded a goodbye message seems to imply that he knew about it. When I watched it, I just thought it was just like extra security, almost like a will, like just in case I die, I have this video.
And the idea that the glove was only a one-time thing to distract Thanos.
That's interesting, perhaps plausible.
The new detail that this Marvel book exposed is an encrypted message from Tony Stark to Bruce Banner, written around the time Tony was engineering that wrist GPS quantum navigator. According to Sci-Fi Wire, Tony mentions the David Deutsch model of quantum mechanics, and he says, quote, "Altering events from the past could never affect the continuous loop, though it could create tangential split timelines. Let's not worry about that for the time being, right? One reality at a time for all our sanity."
Interesting.
The Deutsch proposition actually came up earlier in the film.
Tony, after everything you've seen, is anything really
Quantum
impossible?
fluctuation messes with the Planck scale, which then triggers the Deutsch proposition. Can we agree on that?
Tony was referring to the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, and the assumption that Einstein's theory of space-time is false allows for the theoretical possibility that multiple realities could coexist simultaneously. And this message from Stark to Banner explains how Banner was such a know-it-all to Scott, Rhodey, Clint, and Nebula.
Think about it. If you travel to the past, that past becomes your future. And your former present becomes the past, which can't now be changed by your new future.
Exactly.
But the most interesting implication is the question it brings
That
up.
part
over
was still like, when we rewatched it this weekend, I was still like, what?
Like I said at that time, I think that it's just sounding more complicated than it is because of the way Hulk is explaining it.
Yeah.
I think that it's actually a lot simpler.
I think I'm vaguely starting to understand it now. It's like when you go into the past now, that becomes your present.
Yeah, 'cause it's like the
and
grandfather
your present
paradox.
becomes your past and future,
Do
whatever.
you know about the grandfather paradox?
Explain.
In a nutshell, it's, if you could go back in time and kill your grandfather, would you then cease to exist? And then that means you never went back in time to kill your grandfather.
Right.
So there's like this weird paradox
Loophole,
there.
yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And so
Yeah.
you can't go back in time and kill your grandfather, and that continues through the timeline you came from.
Right, yeah.
You just created a divergence, a split. That's the idea.
Sure.
And so...
Okay, yeah.
The thing is, throughout even in Endgame, they kind of mess with the timeline in such a way that doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. Although I did watch a new Rockstars video talking about Captain America. Him and Peggy are actually combating with the TVA. That's a theory. They were on the run from the TVA, and then they got to Peggy or something like that. And so the reason why he was able to show up where he did without going through that time chamber thing was because he used one of those...
The tempad.
Tempad, yeah. He went through a door, just like any of the TVA people did. That's why he was able to end up on that bench, and it works with the timeline. Because it doesn't make any sense that he would go back in time, live out his life, and then end up in that spot, and everything continues just the same. He automatically, by going back in time, creates a new timeline.
Right, it would be a divergence.
Exactly.
Right, because he would need to come back in order to be Captain America.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, well, no matter what, you go back and change something, you're creating a divergence. Just showing up creates a divergence.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And so they really play with the rules in Endgame a lot. If you think about it too hard, it all falls apart.
Yeah. Because it's starting to, and I'm just like, no.
The most interesting implication is the question it brings up over how much Stark knew going into this. Because right before they confront Thanos, Tony tells Cap,
You mess with time, it tends to mess back.
Yep.
You'll see.
Now, in the moment, we read this as Tony just warning Cap that Thanos himself is the kind of embodiment of fate inevitably returning to haunt anyone who tries to subvert it by messing with the laws of nature. But in the many months since first hearing it, many of us have reinterpreted this line as a possible hint at the even greater unseen chaos the Avengers have unleashed upon the multiverse by meddling with these timelines. One threat we recently learned about is Kang the Conqueror, Marvel's Time Lord villain, confirmed to be played by Jonathan Majors in Ant-Man 3. Did Tony Stark know that Kang was coming? Well, there was another visual clue in Endgame that to this day has never been explained. The quantum tunnel device, when evil Nebula hijacks it to bring 2014 Thanos into the present, features May 2012, that was the time of the Battle of New York that they went to in the time heist, but also two other completely random years, January 2988 BC and November 2009 AD. I have explained how 2988 BC was the earliest known historical date of an Infinity Stone, the Reality Stone, with the Ether appearing in Thor's ancestor Bor's battle with the Dark Elves, shown in the prologue of Thor the Dark World, set in the year 2988. And 2009 would have been sometime between Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, when Nick Fury would have been experimenting with the Tesseract under Project Pegasus. Now, these could just have been alternate time destinations being considered by the Avengers as they were plotting out the time heist. But now that we know Tony was aware of the dangers of tangential split timelines, I think that reframes how we should interpret this clue.
This is
I feel like with Marvel, nothing is done without consideration of meaning something. I don't think it is done without any sort of merit at all. I don't think that was random. I think that was done deliberately. As I watch these Marvel shows, I'm like, there's so many clues. It's like a J.K. Rowling book. It's like you go back to Harry Potter 1, you'll see indications of something that is going to come up in book 7.
I think that's really cool about it. It's just so much, it's so deep, and there's so much that you can kind of peel back the layers on. Yeah.
So of course the timeline of Avengers Endgame is real tricky. There's the 5-year time jump, Scott Lang experiences time dilation, the Ancient One changes the movie's timeline logic halfway through, but most importantly, each of their separate time missions conclude with all of them returning to the same exact moment in the present. As Marty McFly observes, when you have a time machine, you can return to whenever you want. Ooh, by the way, last year I analyzed the dueling depictions of time travel in Endgame and in Back to the Future, and we're gonna release it publicly on this channel in a few days. Don't listen to Scott Lang, Back to the Future is not a bunch of bullshit. But one time jump I think many of us missed is the one that occurred right after the obvious timeline meddling was supposedly finished. After the 5 surviving OG Avengers grieve over Natasha on the dock, the next shot we see of them is in Tony's lab when they're fitting the stones into Stark's new gauntlet. But the editing hides the fact that some time must have passed here. Many of them are now suited up in different clothes. You know how long it must have taken Big Banner to change a top? He can't afford to just rip them all off. We did rank Bruce Banner as the most likely to be on welfare. I think this little time gap explains how those extra numbers could have ended up on that quantum tunnel console just before Nebula snuck over to it. And this new reveal from the book explains Stark's motive.
Are you keeping up? I feel like I missed something in the last minute. He's saying there's a time jump, but I'm like, well, but why? For what? Is he about to explain that? I want to know if I missed something.
He's just saying that it looks like there is a time jump because the characters changed clothes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. He hasn't revealed anything yet, right? Okay.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I mean...
So I just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
See, remember, Cap grabbed 4 extra Pym particle vials from Hank Pym's lab in 1970. Stark and Cap only needed 1 each to get back to the present. That leaves 2 extra Pym particles lying around in the present day, giving Stark the opportunity, the motive, and the time to conduct 2 additional jumps to the past.
Didn't Captain America need that for going back and jumping around and stuff like that to return all the stones?
Perhaps, but maybe if they got Hank Pym back, then they could have got more Pym particles, right? Because after Endgame.
That's true.
And before you say Cap needed those extra vials for the return trip, he clearly needed more than 2. There were 6 stones separated from at least 4 different points in space-time, and presumably the Avengers reloaded on them from like Hank Pym,
okay, what you just said,
or the ones Thanos apparently reverse engineered according to the directors. So what was Stark's secret time mission? Well, this book confirms that Stark knew about alternate realities that he warned Bruce Banner not to worry about yet. And when he tells Cap that time will mess back, he says, "You'll see." Through his solitary experimentation, Stark must have known that some dark force is out there in the time stream playing it all like a goddamn harp. Yeah, I think Tony Stark knew about Kang the Conqueror and the way Kang has already controlled the time stream to enable his future dominion and his kingdom in Chronopolis, which I think that city in the quantum realm is more or less confirmed to be at this point. Stark knew Kang would create one of many branch realities by first snatching the reality stone back from the year 2988 BC. So Stark went back to stop him and clip off that branch. But Stark also knew that Kang would do the same with the space stone in 2009, so he thwarted Kang again and clipped off that branch. So that's 2 jumps, 2 vials, and by 2009, Hank Pym would be over there on the West Coast. So for Tony, it would just be a matter of zipping on over to Hank Pym's lab, stealing another particle, and then returning to the present just in time to help Banner zip up into his activewear. Look, folks, Stark went through something that we didn't see. There was an additional grimness in his eyes when he said those words to Cap just moments after this.
You'll see.
And I think it is because Tony Stark knew there were many other alternate realities controlled by one dark force, Kang the Conqueror, a time stream that Tony Stark tried to clip off, but was unable to completely dam that stream. And he knows here that it's gonna be on the surviving Avengers of the future to face a future that Tony Stark won't be a part of.
Knowing what we know now, with Kang the Conqueror and whatnot, knowing, having seen all the shows up to the present, I don't know, it seems like a lot.
It does seem, the only thing that I'm thinking about right now is like the possibility of Tony Stark coming back, like a variant of him. Most likely RDJ isn't going to come back.
I don't think he's coming back. There's a possibility of Captain America coming back though.
Right.
That's what I heard.
This is wild. And he was already like
the notion
talking about this in 2020.
But given what we know about Kang the Conqueror and how powerful he is, it seems so unlikely that Tony Stark would have combated him and then walked away alive.
All I know about Kang the Conqueror is what I have seen in YouTube videos that we've looked at.
And what we've seen in Loki.
It could be possible that he could be killed by a lone Avenger.
Or thwarted at the very least.
Yeah.
But the thing I've heard, I think in another new Rockstar video, I don't remember where I heard this, but it was a video from YouTube, I believe. The thing that makes Iron Man special more than Kang the Conqueror is that Tony Stark did it by himself, whereas Kang the Conqueror didn't really make his breakthroughs until he lined up with other variants of himself.
Got it.
So he needed to team up with other variants before he could really make headway in his journey or whatever.
Okay.
Versus RDJ or Tony Stark doing it all alone. So maybe it is possible that he would be able to stand up to Kang the Conqueror. I don't know. That's a big leap to me.
Yeah, because I seem to remember, I don't know if it was a new Rockstars video or just another YouTube video that I watched, but they were saying that actually Kang the Conqueror, he's just a regular guy.
Right.
But the only reason
he's
super powered is because of his suit, and same with Iron Man, right?
Well, he's super powered because of his genius, and same with Iron Man.
And the genius and the suit, like the actual strength. So who knows, like whatever version of Kang the Conqueror he saw, maybe he hadn't upped the tech on his suit enough yet.
If that is an actual storyline that happened off screen in the Marvel Cinematic universe, I would so pay to see another Robert Downey Jr. film exploring that storyline.
Yeah.
The cut scenes of Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, 100%.
I would totally pay to see that.
Yeah.
If that actually happened, no wonder it's a movie. They cut it out because that would be a whole movie unto itself.
Well, yeah, and it's so much is being read off of the expression and what was said of that little moment, and like
that might not even be really what he implied.
Yeah, on the one hand, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really interesting interpretation of this, but also I'm like, are you just reading too much into this now, Eric Voss?
Yeah, it's entirely possible that he was just talking about Thanos.
Yeah,
it was like you'll see outside. You'll see.
Yeah,
you'll see outside what I saw on my little scanner, what Friday was telling me.
Yeah, but it's super cool to think of, oh, maybe he did just go on a little adventure, like, wow.
The fact that those dates were input and they didn't show you what that was about, that's not a mistake.
I don't think they really do mistakes. This isn't Game of Thrones.
I thoroughly enjoyed that, even if it is just a theory.
Yeah.
If all of this is very, very educated speculation. And I think he did a really good job of making his point, even though I don't know about how much stock to put into that, but they did use those dates. And again, what we've been saying throughout the video is Marvel doesn't do these things by mistake. They do it with purpose. And so I would imagine there is a reason, but I don't know if that's the reason. As long as you got pin particles, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Anyways, you guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. I am Jaby Koay. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.